What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome back to the GOAT District live via the Player Profiler Network. Week 2 was another roller coaster. We have more injuries, more drama, and more shockers. So tonight, Dan and I are going to dive deep into players that you should be thinking about, buys and sells, true concerns, trades, and so much more. So grab yourself a cold one, sit back, smash the like button, and let's get
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Welcome to the GOAT District live via the Player Profiler Network on a Tuesday night, Dan, where you can find us every week of the NFL season. You can also go over to the GOAT District, maybe after the show. You can find our YouTube channel. Smash a subscribe so you don't miss any GOATness. Dan, we had another crazy week 2. I mean, the NFL, never a dull moment. We got tons to talk about. I know we've got a lot of running backs to talk about. Looking big picture, what are your thoughts on week 2? And how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, week 2 was kind of a running back apocalypse there. It was not pleasant to sort through the wreckage. So I what time I've had today to spend on fantasy football, I've just been trying to figure out how bad the damage is on some teams and how I'm going to pick my way through it. So, but I'm sure many of you are in the same boat as well. So it's hard not to be almost.
Yeah, I mean, we saw some bounce backs this week. Pittsburgh looked good last night at home against Cleveland, which I think surprised probably many. The Giants with a crazy comeback, pretty shitty start, and then made up for it in the second half. Came back for a win. Seattle bounced back. Buffalo. Who out of these teams, Dan, do you believe the most moving forward?
I mean, I think of the bounce backs, probably Buffalo the most. It was a little bit tough to believe in Pittsburgh and the Giants just because there was, with the Giants it was a full half of complete ineptitude, and with Pittsburgh it's just a half the team is completely inept, the offense. So I think Buffalo has the most complete team. Seattle, I think, will right the ship as well, but Buffalo is the one I definitely believe in the most.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think Buffalo, maybe started off a little tough there with a tough first matchup, but I think they're known, to beat on lesser teams, so they did just play the Raiders. Let's see how it goes moving forward. But I agree with you, Dan. Out of these teams, I mean, you could see any of the other teams go either way the rest of the season. Quarterback's a little questionable. A couple questions here and there in the offenses. Some teams just keep rolling, Dan. And Atlanta and Tampa Bay are 2 surprises so far this season. Miami, San Fran, I don't think so much. Washington, Baltimore, and Dallas, all just rolling, Dan. Atlanta beating a pretty decent Green Bay team. Denver. Washington beating Denver. Which one of these, if any, for you are favorites to go to the Super Bowl, if we can even make that prediction after 2 weeks?
All right. So first off, I want to know: did anybody have three teams in the NFC South being at 2-0 on their bingo card? Because I did not. So hats off to Atlanta, Tampa, and New Orleans for all being 2-0. And yeah, I do not think any of them are going to be in the Super Bowl, though. I think Dallas right now really looks like the favorite, but it's a long season. San Francisco is not far behind them. So, I think both those teams, along with Philadelphia, are probably the main front runners right now.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen Dallas start off strong before and, give people hope, especially their fans. And we don't necessarily get the same or the end result that we expect. So we'll see how it goes as the season goes. But, we're starting to see. I always say I like to give the NFL 4 weeks to kind of settle in. I learned that from Brady and the Patriots. They always seem to need about 4 weeks to let their offense and their team settle in. There's the teams then I call the others. You've got Green Bay, Vegas, Denver. The Chargers are just, Chargers and Cincinnati, I guess you could say, based on what we expect, the firepower these teams have on offense, the quarterbacks they have. Who concerns you the most out of these others?
Well, I would say Las Vegas concerns me the most, but I never believed they were going to do anything anyway. So they're doing kind of what I expected. Denver, I think, has to be highly concerned. They're just having trouble getting their offense on track. They rolled out to a big lead though over Washington, and then they just let Washington come storming back on them. So that looks like a team with problems to me. Green Bay, I don't know. I don't think anybody in the NFC North is going to really do any damage in the playoffs. So I think these teams are really kind of playing for 2024 in a way, just trying to set the stage to launch well next season. Chargers, so definitely surprised to see them 0-2. Cincinnati, maybe even a little bit less surprised to see them 0-2, just based on the fact that Joe Burrow had no preseason whatsoever. And now it looks like that calf is a problem. So I would say Cincinnati is the one who concerns me the most here.
Agreed, especially with all my, Burrow, T. Higgins, Chase investments, you could say. The Chargers, especially disappointing. When you have close losses like that and the way they've been losing, I know everybody's kind of ready to throw the coach under the bus, but those are usually places to start looking if you're looking for blame. So hopefully they can turn around. Hopefully the Burrow situation isn't as bad. I think they're already even kind of embedded in the lines already. I think they were -2 at home this week, and can't remember off the top of my head who they're even playing. Remember, Dan? I'll get back to it if you don't. Yeah, it's fine. I'll get back to it, and we'll probably even talk about it later on in the show. Just you like to see it. You don't like to see Joe Burrow. Hopefully this isn't like a season thing, where it kind of drags out and it just puts a damper on that offense for the rest of the season, for their fans, for I think just NFL fans. There's certain players you like to see on the field, and Burrow is definitely one of them. So hopefully they turn it around. Dan, let's get into kind of our player Rolodex, which I think we started doing last week. Just going through some different situations, some players to take note of, where we think, Fantasyland could go, should go, or can go. It was hard for me not to only talk about running backs, because it seems like every way you turn, every team you look at, every situation involves a running back. So we're going to start there. We're going to go to my Colts first. Highest running back snap share for week 2, as per Scott Spratt, apologies. Went to our boy Zach Moss. Dan, I told you in the DMs, because you, I think, came to me to either go get him or do something with Zach Moss, and I kind of poo-pooed it. Just wasn't impressed with what I saw in Buffalo. Didn't find that he took opportunity whenever Singletary was out. It's a little different this weekend, Dan. How do you feel about Zach Moss? Are you buying this? Is this something we can expect moving forward, kind of with or without AR, or was this like an isolated perfect storm for the running back?
Yeah, I don't see Zach Moss continuing to be as dominant as he was this past week. You know, I think with Anthony Richardson going out before halftime, I believe it was, you know, that definitely played into it a little bit. The opponent, Houston, played into it a little bit. You know, so I wouldn't get too out over my skis with Zach Moss. And we also could potentially have JT coming back in week 4 or after week 4. You know, who knows whether he'll actually want to come back to this team or not. But eventually he needs to get in some games somewhere, or his contract is going to roll over and he's going to owe another year. So I do expect him to play somewhere at some point. So for that reason also, I mean, you know, Zach Moss, I think, is probably a little bit of a short timer.
Yeah, and these indie, you know, kind of backup running backs, they just, you know, I said about Deion Jackson coming into the season, they seem a little trappy with, you know, where you want to spend your waiver wire money, and how much of it you want to spend on them, just because it doesn't seem like a situation where someone's just going to, I don't know that they have the talent behind JT to just come in and kind of take over that.
Yeah, and Nick in the chat makes a good point. You know, the usage is definitely there. I mean, you know, as you said, he's got the highest running back snap share for week 2. So there's certainly nothing to sneeze at. I'm just not sure he's going to be as efficient moving forward.
Yeah, agreed. So last night, still catching up on this game, but awful injury, Dan, to Nick Chubb, knee injury to the Steelers. He was 4th. Well, he still is 4th in rushing in the NFL after 2 weeks. Jerome Ford goes for 106, 25 receptions or receiving yards, apologies, and a touchdown. I know this is a guy that in the district we're pretty high on, like kind of late in those best ball drafts, and getting yourself that backup, you know, those late backups that could potentially become league winners. Is this what we're seeing in Cleveland? Do we see another Justice Hill type of situation where maybe it's fool's gold, Dan? What do you think happens in Cleveland moving forward? We're already hearing that Kareem Hunt is in talks with the Browns right now.
Yeah, so first and foremost, you know, prayers up for Nick Chubb, and, you know, best wishes for him to recover. That just looked awful. If you happen to go out looking for it, you were able to find it on Twitter, and it was something I saw and kind of wished I hadn't seen. You know, but on the other hand, having seen it, you know what kind of a road he's facing. So, you know, best wishes to him, and hopefully he can come all the way back one more time on another second injury to that same knee. As far as Jerome Ford goes, I mean, you know, I guess the way I look at it is that, you know, Kareem Hunt, they could have brought him back, and they said, no, we're good with Jerome Ford. You know, now they need another running back, so, you know, you can understand why they have interest in Hunt, because he knows the system, everything else. But I really think this is probably going to be Ford's backfield going forward. So I would plan on him, you know, having the lion's share of it. You know, Hunt is going to spell him, but I think it's probably going to, you know, Ford is going to probably get as much as he can handle there. So I like him a lot better than Justice Hill. He's really in, you know, FFPC or in FFC leagues. He's really not available anywhere. But if Jerome Ford isn't available in your league, I would basically throw the bank at him, because I think he's one of those that you can probably count on most of the year.
Agreed. And, you know, hopefully Chubb can recoup from his pretty, you know, do you know this, like, how severe? I know he's pretty much out for the season, but do we have any timeline or anything specific, or is that still up in the air?
On Chubb, I think if he's able to make it back at all, that's going to be a huge win. And when I say that, I mean, you know, not necessarily even just next year, but at any point in his career.
That's sad.
Yeah, it was just one of the most horrific hits I've seen on a knee ever.
And he dealt, I believe, coming in as a rookie, he was coming off of a pretty severe injury, if my recollection is right.
2015, I think, is at Georgia. He had his knee was just absolute, and it's the same knee, and he tore basically every ligament, or 3 of the 4 ligaments in his knee done. And this one looked like it might be just as bad or worse.
Awful. Well, hopefully he can come back. You never like to see anyone, you know, get hurt like that. Unfortunately, it just seems like the big running backs taking a beating. You some early investments for a lot of fantasy players that are going down. We go to New Orleans, Dan. Last night, the Saints, we saw Jamal Williams, another running back, go down. Tony Jones Jr. Might not have been a player that a lot of Fantasyland knew before last night, but after 2 touchdowns and kind of taking over for Jamal after he suffered his hamstring injury, is this someone that we should be targeting off waivers? How much of your fab, or how much of fab should Fantasyland be considering if they are needy at running back? And Kendre and Kamara are still in the storyline, Dan, aren't they?
Yeah, and Taysom Hill as well. And of course, Taysom Hill, depending on where you're playing at, he might be a tight end, he might be a quarterback, but I don't know of anywhere where they're considering him a running back. So, he's not going to help you out at running back position at all. If he does happen to have tight end eligibility, I think he's a great pickup, and go ahead and put him in because he's probably going to get a decent amount of rushing attempts and be involved in the offense until Alvin Kamara comes back next week. And that's kind of what gives me pause on any of these guys. Tony Jones, he looked pretty good last night, but on the other hand, we also could have Kendre Miller coming back this week. Who knows how much Taysom Hill might be involved, and then Alvin Kamara comes back next week. So, Tony Jones is a short-term Band-Aid, and your free agent bid should reflect the fact that he's going to be more of a Band-Aid most likely than any kind of a long-term solution.
All right, Dan, as much as we have a lot to get through, we are going to go to a quick word to our sponsors.
Now, as we at Player Profiler have become a full-blown machine learning company, the crowning achievement has to be the injury finder. We're now taking BMI data and injury history data and assigning a probability that a player is injured on any given touch. And not only can you see a player's fragility rating, their injury risk, we also have analysis from professional physical therapists breaking down all the major players that underwent surgery last year and what their rehabilitation looks like heading into 2023. There's a tool to compare players. There's a database where you can say, show me all the foot injuries, show me all the severe injuries, show me all the injuries requiring surgery. It provides you the key market intelligence to know what is the difference in probability that player X versus player Y will miss games this year. It's great for fantasy football, and it also just satisfies your curiosity as a fan. Go to the App Store, go to Google Play, download it. It's $5 every year just to reload the latest injury predictions and fragility ratings. The 2023 data is live now. Open your phone and get smarter.
And very relevant with today's topic, Dan. We are back. So let's take a little break from running backs. Dan, let's go to receivers. We don't want to, discriminate too much here with the positions. We know we crush on our running backs. We definitely love the high volatility of the position, and we're seeing that already after 2 weeks. But let's go to a name that was one of the hottest stands during draft season, which is George Pickens. Week 1, obviously Pittsburgh just ran into San Fran, or I guess San Fran ran into Pittsburgh, and kind of shut down that offense. But last night, Pickens goes off 127, 4 receptions and a touchdown on 10 targets. Where does this put Pickens for you in wide receiver rankings? Meaning, do you consider him still maybe a higher end wide receiver 2 or low end wide receiver 1? Where do you consider Pickens, and how high do you think he can go, and can he keep this up?
Yeah, so thank you for giving us a brief interlude from the nonstop misery at running back here. I'm glad to talk about something good. George Pickens obviously looked great on especially that one play where he took a slant to the house, 71 yards last night. I think if anybody's still saying that Pickens can't get open, that he's just a contested catch clasher, we're seeing more and more evidence that that's just simply not true, that he is adjusting to the league. Remember, he's very, very young. I believe he's still only 22 years old right now. So he's got a long career ahead of him. I think he's going to be very, very good. I'm not ready to pop him into the top 12. For one thing, we believe that Deontay Johnson will come back, and that will definitely eat into his target share. And for another thing, Kenny Pickett looks just awful right now at quarterback. And so we need to, they have gone in their defense. They've gone against two very tough defenses. But I don't think it's quite time to anoint Pickens. But, you should, if you've got him on your team, you should feel good about it. And he's a promising player moving forward.
You are correct, Dan. 25.5, according to our friends at the Player Profiler website. And our buddy Nick Tabbs points out Pittsburgh at Vegas, at Houston, at home to Baltimore. We saw T. Higgins go off last night or this weekend in Baltimore. We saw Buffalo go off against Vegas. So, some nice matchups coming up for the receiver. And if you've got him, like you said, you're taking advantage and you're loving it. He's definitely paying off. And I know Deontay is injured right now, but it doesn't look like he's back anytime soon.
Nope,
So
they just put him on IR. So I think as soon as he can come back is week 6 now.
yeah, there you go. Anthony agreed. Pickens and Warren should eat next 3 matchups at least. So there you go. Pittsburgh on the up after a rough start against San Fran. Dan, we got to go back to the misery. We're going to go back to running backs. Austin Eckler, not someone I drafted very often in that first round. He misses week 2 versus Tennessee, and right now he's without a timeline to return, according to our friends over at, I believe it was Fantasy Pros. Now, the Chargers are coming off of their second loss. Josh Kelly only rushing for 39 yards and no involvement in the passing game. Do we want part of this running game? Dan, I know Spiller, I think he had like 1 carry for 3 yards or something. So you thought maybe he, coming into his second year, he shows something. They roll into Minnesota this week, into your neck of the woods. How are you handling this backfield, and how are you handling Eckler right now?
I mean, if the Chargers' running game isn't salivating at the thought of facing the Vikings, who got just absolutely steamrolled on the ground by Philadelphia, there's something wrong. So, if you've got Josh Kelly, I would definitely stick him in your lineup. I would, last week was a tough week, but, unless and few of us do have very good options with all these running backs that are missing time. If you've got Josh Kelly, you're probably needing him, and I wouldn't feel bad about putting him in there at all. If you're looking for somebody to sneak on the end of your roster, Elijah Dotson, I think, is a great player to do that, because he looks like kind of the next guy up after Josh Kelly there. I don't know what's going on with Austin Eckler. It's just kind of weird that, everything seemed to be trending like, he'll probably only miss a week, and now he's without a timeline. I don't know how to make sense of that. But yeah, if Josh Kelly is, he could be useful for quite a while, and thus it's wise to roster Dotson as well, because if anything happens to Kelly, it could be Dotson.
Let's go over to Atlanta, Dan. We talked about them as a bit of a surprise. Our buddy Josh Larkey, friend of the show, has been on many times. We got to get him on soon, actually.
Yes.
Put out a nice tweet today, and make sure you're following Josh at JLarkey Tweets if you're not already. Looking at Falcons targets, Dan, so far as leaders. Bijan, 11. Mac Hollins, 10. Tied for 3rd, Kyle Pitts and Drake London with 8. And then Jonnu Smith with 6, Algier with 3. He's basically saying, like, it's not looking good for Falcons pass catchers rest of the season in fantasy. I know we were going, I'll put myself in there, but you kind of swayed me, Dan. I'm not going to lie. With London, you went heavy on London. Are you worried? Are you worried about this offense moving forward? Or is this just a matter of this offense in these 2 specific games, we're working the backfield. We know that the coach there likes to work the running backs and give them volume. How do you see this moving forward? Is basically the question. Like, should we be really concerned with Drake London right now? He did all right this week, I believe, gave you some pretty good fantasy points. But how concerned are you about London and just this passing game altogether?
Yeah, so normally I I'm a big proponent of, the cream always rises to the top, and so a player of London's talent, you would expect him to naturally come to the top of the target totem pole and look real good. You could say the same thing about Pitts as well. However, and if you'll pardon my French, Arthur Smith does not give a shit about our fantasy teams at all. He is almost determined to try to equalize his targets regardless of any skill level of those targets or anything like that. I mean, it's like a true communist country down there where everything is apportioned out very equally. And it doesn't matter how good you are or anything else. This is what you're getting. And also, like any other communist country, the pie is very small too. So that's a real problem. Yeah, I'm definitely concerned about London. There are places where I've got to keep putting him in the lineup. I do believe in his talent, but again, Arthur Smith is making it really, really tough to believe that the cream is going to rise to the top consistently.
Can you even say he's a matchup play when you talk about London, or not even?
Yeah, I think a little bit of a matchup play. The thing is I'm still trying to figure out, what if there's any sort of rhyme or reason to how he's setting up the offense. Is there, can we be able to identify when a London game might be coming or when a Pitts game might be coming, or is that just not even going to be possible? So it's right now, if I've got good options, I'm probably going to use them over London, but, at least last week was somewhat encouraging. And so hopefully that continues, but yeah, I never feel great about London or Pitts in my lineup.
Who was the receiver opposite Julio Jones, Dan, in Atlanta when he first came into the league? White was his last name, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
It's gonna bug me.
Yeah, starts with an R. It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, if you guys know, there it is, Roddy White. There it is.
Roddy White. Yes,
do you remember there was I think it was there was a season where it was like on and off, where it was like 1 week was the one guy, and that was the only reason. That was the only reasoning. It was like on and off. On even numbers you went with White, on even numbers you went with Julio, and somehow it worked all season.
Yeah, I think it was weirdly enough. I think it was Julio. One of them was scoring only on the road or only at home. I think Julio was scoring only on the road or something like that. So, and Roddy was kind of scoring everywhere. So, Roddy White was the good play, and Julio was just kind of like that frustrating matchup. So it could be the same sort of thing going on.
Yeah, the worst. Yeah, he's had some frustrating seasons. When he had the hamstring, like every game was pretty annoying too. Let's look at just NFL Talk put out a tweet and just listed like the starting running backs that have been injured this season through 2 weeks. The ones that we haven't talked about, Dan, are Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Barkley, JT we touched on, Chubb we touched on, and then of course J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore. Where are you with the Demont situation? Any update on that? Is he coming back anytime soon, or is this Jahmyr Gibbs season for real?
I'm not sure that I really buy that it's going to be Jahmyr Gibbs season in the way that most people want it to be Jahmyr Gibbs season. I think that they're going to put somebody in the David Montgomery role, and I don't expect to see Gibbs doing a lot of running between the tackles still. I think they're going to continue to use him pretty much as they have been using him, more in the passing game, with the occasional carries, probably running outside the tackles more when they do give him the ball. So, I think they still want to have some kind of a grinder in there. They just don't seem to feel like Gibbs is ready for that role yet. So I think, Craig Reynolds is, kind of the next man up from what I've seen. They did just elevate Zonovan Bam Knight, one of the best running back names in all of fantasy football. He's been elevated from the practice squad to the team. So he may have some kind of a role too. But, I think Gibbs, his role gets a little bit bigger, but it's not going to be huge.
Anthony asking about Reynolds in the waiver wire streets. Dan, you're pretty good with those bids. He's saying between 5 and 15 trying to grab Reynolds. He's probably going to be a hot pickup this week, no?
Probably so. I'm assuming since he's between 5 and 15 that he's talking about $100 fab limit.
Percentage, yeah.
Yeah, 5 to 15%. That probably makes sense. I mean, you do have Jameson coming back, so but then again, we Jameson hasn't really done a lot to prove that he can definitely be the guy. So I think Reynolds is an interesting buy, and if you need the help, you can throw out 15% if you really need it. With all of these fab percentages, I try to make it very context specific. If you need a guy pretty bad at a position, you should be willing to bid higher. If you don't need him that bad and you're just trying to add to the bottom of your roster, you don't need to bid as much. You want to keep your powder dry for when you really need it.
Yeah, you're just kind of scraping the bottom, hoping you can pick something up for cheap if you don't
Right.
necessarily need it. But like Dan said, guys, you have the fab for a reason. It's when you need a guy. If you need a running back or you need a receiver, and there's one on that you think can help you out, even if it's for 1 or 2 weeks, that's significant when you can't fill that RB2 or whatever spot it is. Aaron Jones, Dan, is what's the situation there? Is he back soon? Do you know?
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm thinking. I was thinking of Josh Reynolds, not Craig Reynolds. So Craig Reynolds, probably between 5 and 15%. Sorry, my brain is not
that's
much right now.
Yeah, no, you're good, Dan. You're right. Craig Reynolds, the running back, Josh Reynolds, the receiver. The thing is, didn't they both have a good week or no?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. It gets even more confusing. There you go.
That's my confusion.
You're excused, Dan. It's all good. You had a rough day. We both had a rough day, man. When your kid is sick and you don't sleep at all, and you got to kind of go through the day, it's tough, man. Doing a 9 p.m. Goat District, but we're here, man. We're here. We want to make sure you guys get your goatness, and if we can do anything to help you guys win this next week, that's what we're here for. Smash that like and tune in weekly, because that's what we're gonna do. Dan, let's go. Let's go with Cam Akers. I know you and I were kind of split on this guy. I feel like through like second half of the offseason. I feel like I was more on him early in the offseason. But then the injury talk, or what I was hearing about, post-injury with regards to him coming into the season, just had me worried. And then now we see, obviously, what's his name? Kyron Williams kind of take over. Now you're seeing that Akers is on the trade block, and he's already had teams inquire. So you've got Tampa Bay, Baltimore, Vegas, and Cleveland are the 4 that they've mentioned that have, put a feeler out, I guess you could call it. What are your thoughts with where Akers going, and just with the situation with the Rams with that backfield?
Yeah, Akers was somebody I cooled on quite a bit too. Early in the draft season, I was taking him a good bit, and really, by the time training camp started, I was almost completely off him, just because of the fact that they were talking up Kyron big time, and we knew that they liked Kyron last year as well, and he just got hurt. He had a pretty bad ankle injury, and he was just never really able to get back up to full speed. So with Cam Akers, fortunately I did not have much of him once we started getting around to the high dollar teams. I was loading up on Kyron Williams, which I'm very, very happy about. That guy has turned out to be a heck of a late round find. And Cam Akers, I mean, you've got to hope he can do it somewhere else, but you got to ask yourself, is this an Akers problem, or is this a Sean McVay problem? Because these two guys cannot seem to coexist on the same team. And if it's an Akers problem, it's just going to follow him to the next team. And, so I guess if you're in Dynasty, if he goes to a good destination and you don't really, really need him, I would probably just sell that news, and take advantage of the euphoria of, hey, he's going to a new team. Everybody's excited about it. And, because, imagine if he ends up in Cleveland or Baltimore or somewhere like that where we perceive there's a huge need for a running back, you might be able to get a pretty nice price for Akers, and it might be your best chance to get out from under him.
Yeah, if he lands in a good spot, I mean, that it could definitely help him. You named a couple spots, especially now in Cleveland with that open role. Again, running backs just need an opportunity. So if Akers could get, now there's also talk then that he could just get completely cut, right, from the team.
Yeah, McVay sounds like he's basically said that Akers is not getting another snap with the team, and if that's the case, I mean, if they can't trade him, they might as well cut him. The only problem is he said basically the same thing last year, and then somehow over the bye week they kissed and made up, and Akers was back. So that's why I just don't know. I'm just happy I've got Kyron, and I'm just moving forward with that. And any place I've got Akers, if I can unload him for a decent price, I'm probably going to do that.
Yeah, what a nice surprise Kyron has been so far. Talking a lot of negative with the running backs, but he was definitely a nice surprise for fantasy owners who either got him off waivers or just drafted him like you did, Dan, later in the offseason. I know we were trying to pile up as much Kyron in those last drafts, especially just hearing, that he was becoming more and more relevant to that offense. We started talking about Gibbs earlier. I know just on the GOAT district, there are two running backs we were really bullish on, and Jahmyr Gibbs was definitely one of them. James Cook was definitely one of them. So let's start with Cooks. Our buddy Dwayne McFarland at Dwayne McFarland puts out a tweet on the 18th of September. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't get a big bump in rushing after Demont left, but route participation surged 67%. Gibbs can deliver on 30 to 40% of attempts at 60% or better route participation. His 35% target per route in 2023 is elite, high-end RB2 until Monty returns. Now, is that kind of as high as you think it goes? I know we kind of already touched on this, and maybe it's just putting a bow on it really quickly, Dan, just because it's kind of part of this little segment here. But do you think that Gibbs ever takes over this role completely, or do you think he's more like a Kamara? To me, he's more like a Kamara, where he's going to get enough in this offense to give you that possible RB1 production?
Yeah, I think that's really what we're looking for here, is for him to be a Kamara type player. And, a lot of his value is going to come through the passing game, which is fine because, those are the most high value touches you can get other than goal line touches. So I'm totally fine with him, increasing his participation in the passing game, getting a higher target percentage. So I think as that happens, he's going to perform better and better. He still hasn't scored a touchdown yet. He's scored between 10 and 15 points both weeks. So the 20 plus point week is coming, and it's coming soon. He's somebody I expect will, as the season goes along, hopefully continue to just get better and better as they put a little bit more on his plate. Hopefully, eventually, like Kamara, they'll use him sometimes between the tackles as well. A little bit more than they have been now. So if you've got Gibbs, you want to hold tight. Good things are coming, but I think you can kind of put the Gibbs's top 6 RB type stuff. I never saw the path to that. I still don't see that, but definitely a very valuable piece for your fantasy teams.
Yeah, Alex Caruso, another friend of the show, points out the from week 1 to week 2, snap shares from 27% to 48%, route participation 25% to 59% in week 2, and then total touches from 9 to 16 in week 2 for Jahmyr Gibbs. So we're seeing that, like we said, Dan, opportunity and touches are what you want from your running back, especially a guy with this talent. So ascending offense, ascending opportunity for the young running back, and we know Theo was really high on Gibbs. He was high on Gibbs and Bijan, and both of them right now are so far proving to do well. A guy I was really big on, especially in the middle of the offseason, just found he was super cheap, and this is before he rocketed up draft boards. I came on saying James Cook was a must buy at a nice discount, and he's just cooking, Dan. 5th in rushing. One of only 7 running backs to force 10 plus missed tackles, as per, again, our buddy Alex Caruso on Twitter. Week 2 versus the Raiders, Dan, 123 rushing, 7.2 average yards per rush, and 36 yards receiving. Again, kind of like Gibbs, Dan. He hasn't gotten that touchdown. You had a touchdown there, and this guy's just a monster on his way to win you leagues this year. How bullish are you still? I know you were bullish on James Cook, and how do you see him moving forward in this offense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still bullish on James Cook. And while you were, sunning yourself on the beaches of Portugal, JD, we had Jax Falcone on, and he and I kind of we talked a little bit about Gibbs. He was very much, Gibbs is better than Cook. I said, tell me something that Gibbs can do that Cook can't, and Cook has another year of seasoning. He said, well, he's fast. Well, Cook is fast enough. And right now James Cook is looking like basically a somewhat better version of Jahmyr Gibbs that cost you a little bit less in the draft. So I'm very high on what he's got going on. I don't see him becoming the goal line runner or anything like that. So touchdowns are always going to be a little scarce for Cook. But as long as he's getting that elite usage in the passing game, he's going to be able to overcome that. And he is on an elite offense. He is capable of scoring from a distance. These are things we want to see from our running back. So I feel real good about Cook. He's somebody I'm absolutely putting in my lineup pretty much no matter who else I have or anything else.
Yeah, I love James Cook. I love running backs and good offenses, and they just didn't do enough, Dan, the Bills this offseason to show me that they didn't believe in James Cook. And somebody had to take, you know what I mean? Somebody had to come in there and kind of step up, and James Cook was just set up nicely for it, and it's kind of paying off so far. So let's hope that continues. I was trying to find, I thought I saw a couple questions in the chat that we didn't answer, Dan. If you see them, let me know. I'm trying to here we go. Here's a good one. Justin Santiago is asking, is Christian Watson's season coming, Dan? Is he a buy low?
Yeah, if you can find somebody who's selling low on him, I would definitely buy him for sure. I think his talent is pretty undeniable. I think that Jordan Love has started off better at quarterback than most people expected. So that I think the confluence of those two things is probably going to look pretty good. So I would definitely be buying low. I know I have, and I know you have as well, JD. We have a lot of Christian Watson shares sitting on our bench, just kind of just itching to get into the game. So I'm eager to be able to deploy him as soon as he is ready.
I was gonna say, Dan, and when we walked into the show, we've got three mains that you and I kind of played together. The FFPC main events. The two live drafts are 2-0, but the one we drafted online is 0-2. Dan, does this mean that we just draft all our mains live in Vegas from now on? Is that what it's telling us?
Well, who can argue with that, really?
I know.
Drafting in Vegas is way more fun.
It was definitely fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Here we go. How would you prioritize from SVGE Germ? I think that is. How would you prioritize Ford, Nico, Stroud, and who's our Johnson?
Roschon Johnson. I'm guessing.
Roschon Johnson. Oh, there you go. Still on waivers. Okay. That's an interesting question. Dan, is it just dependent on need, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, basically we're looking at three different positions here. So depending on what you need, Stroud has been off to a really nice start. I thought he was probably the best rookie quarterback in the Superflex leagues that we drafted in. I was taking him as kind of a number two quarterback that was available late, and I've been pretty happy with that. So I guess if you have a need at quarterback and Superflex, Stroud would be somebody I would definitely prioritize if he's somehow still out there or you can acquire him cheaply. Other than that, I think you probably have a quarterback that's doing as well as Stroud. If you got the extra roster spot, sure, you might want to swap out your backup, put Stroud in there. Maybe he becomes your main quarterback at some point. But I would be on the rest of these guys. I would definitely be prioritizing Ford because, as we know, a good running back who is getting something close to bell cow usage, which is within the realm of possibility for Ford. That's one of the most valuable assets in fantasy football. Nico Collins is definitely riding on the Stroud train. Things are looking good there. If you need a wide receiver, Absolutely. He's not available in any of our, big leagues, but in smaller leagues, with smaller rosters, he might still be available, and I would definitely grab a hold of him. Roshan Johnson, I think, is probably the one that I'm least interested in here, and he's still very intriguing because he has a pretty good role as a receiving back. It's just that Chicago is such a mess, and Justin Fields doesn't look like he's processing very well still, which I think is going to hold this whole offense back. So things are a little bit tougher for Roshan. Love the skill set. I'm just not sure he's in the right situation to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad too, because Roshan does look like he's primed to take over that backfield. It's just, what does that backfield look like? What does that offense look like? They look like right now probably Arizona looks better than Chicago right now to me, at least putting up fights and being competitive. So I think, yeah, Ford is probably number one priority. Nico Collins, I mean, if you need a receiver, he's definitely a nice add if you can still get him. Stroud, I would imagine we're talking super flex. I mean, maybe you're trying to add him if you had Rodgers or something in a 1 QB. I don't know, but again, that's just based on need. And if that's what you need, you got to put up the bucks to get the player that you need to fill in those spots. But for me, the running backs are the most attractive for me always on waivers during the season, especially the way I build my rosters. I want that depth at running back and get these guys when they are starting or giving you production.
Oh, JD, why would you need depth at running back? I mean, it's
I
not
know.
like anything has really happened this year at running back. No injuries.
No, they're like a shoe. They're a shoe in for 18. Then they're just guaranteed 18. You could put your money on it every year.
The carnage this year is just it's really bad through 2 weeks. Possibly the worst I've seen through 2 weeks.
It is. All right, Dan. I don't like to admit often about bad trades, but let's talk about a trade you and I had recently. I was, I'm a sucker for stacks, Dan. I wanted to stack coming into the season, hearing that Mr. Sky Moore was what was he on every? He was basically on the field for every snap from what I was understanding at the time. I had Mahomes. I had my Mims, which I picked up a lot of, Marvin Mims, and I know how much you love Marvin Mims. So we got a deal done, swapping them. You got the better pick out of that. But dude went off, man. Goes off for 113, Dan, 1 touchdown off of 2 targets, and then adds a 45-yard punt return. How pumped are you to see Mims, producing this early with all the Mims bags that we have? And what is it? According to Scott Barrett, number 1 yards per route run for the rookie receiver. How do you see this rest of the season? Is this what you're going to expect, or is this kind of be, it's going to be on and off for this rookie in this Denver offense?
I want to know what it takes for Sean Payton to get his Marvin Mims out of the garage and use it. I mean, this is like, owning a Maserati or something like that, and you're like, nah, I'd rather take out my 2010 Honda Accord and drive that around, because Mims is the truth. I mean, we saw it, rips off a huge punt return. He rips off 2 giant receptions as well. And they're just still not giving him targets. They're still not letting them run that many routes. So Mims is a guy you absolutely want to hold. If there's any way at all, you can keep him on the end of your roster. And I know with leagues with shallow benches, that can be tough. But I'm begging you, just hold on to Mims, hold on to him, because if he ever gets that usage, I think he's going to explode. The talent there is just, in my opinion, it's pretty off the charts. So hang on to him. Hopefully, Sean Payton eventually, brings that Maserati out of the garage and starts driving it around a little bit.
Good news, Dan, is they're not winning. So when you're not winning, you try something else. You hope, anyways,
Right.
that Sean does, lean more on the rookie receiver. And I mean, in all fairness, that was Judy's first game back. So I didn't necessarily get to see the whole game. I didn't necessarily see how good Judy looked, but I would imagine he's not going to be, 100% we're going to go first game back. So let's see how this offense kind of develops. But if I'm Cortland Sutton owner right now, I'm looking to sell. That's for sure.
Judy is fine. I mean, he's your 2019 Dodge Charger or something like that. But he's not in an Accord. That's a little more Cortland Sutton. But he is not the Maserati that I think Mims is. So let's see it. Come on, Sean Payton. Let's see it.
Good news for Anthony Richardson fans. Bob Cooter saying he's not going to scale back on the young quarterbacks rushing usage. So for me, that's good news. Definitely. I know Dan, that you and I have some Anthony Richardson. I've got some with I think it's Harry Snowman. We've got a couple teams going with him. Looking at the kind of the wire feed here, Dan, Brandon Aiyuk stands out. Possibly game time decision this Thursday night. I know you and I, guys, make sure you tune into the GOAT District Thursday night, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Dan and I do a pre-show. We call it Thursday Tailgate, where we go through some, talk about waiver wire results, talk about starts and sits, injuries, anything relevant to that game on Thursday night and any game over the weekend coming up in week 3. So you can find that on the GOAT District channel. Dan, how worried are you about Aiyuk, especially that he's been looking good?
Yeah, it's a short week. If you've got options, I think I would probably just go ahead and plan on using those. Even if he does play, he certainly might not play a full role. This is one of those situations where somebody injured coming in onto a short week, it's probably going to be better to find somebody else to use if at all possible. And for those of you holding out hope on Saquon, no, I don't think he's going to play. And if he does, I'm not sure how effective he would be. So I'm hoping that the Giants will hold out Saquon rather than try to put him in there on Thursday night.
Does that open the door, Dan, for anyone else in that San Fran offense if Aiyuk is missing? Is this like the Debo Kittle show, or what do you think happens?
I would think so. I mean, I'm sure that Juwan Johnson is going to slide right in there and start taking a few more targets, but hopefully that just kind of shifts the focus over to Debo and to Kittle a little bit more. Obviously, as fantasy players, we want to see the guys that we drafted doing well. We don't want to see guys like Juwan Johnson, eating up all the targets that should be going to our players. But he's going to get some. And and we have somebody in the chat, Chai11 says it's a shoulder injury, he'll be all right. I guess, yeah, that's true. He's still got his legs underneath him, but the thing is it can make it, an AC joint injury can make it real tough to lift your hands above your head. I'm sure, JD, you can speak to the difficulty of dealing with shoulder injuries, because it's more than just running. You've got to be able to catch the ball. And
that's as high as I go, Dan. It's as high as I go.
Right. And you had to kind of lift up your shoulder like this
exactly
to get that high.
Yeah. That's like me really every day doing my, exercise or whatever to get to that point. I'm still working on getting all the way up, but that's like, it's not an easy thing to have to deal with especially I would imagine as a football player. I can't even imagine.
Right. Yeah. I mean, do as you wish there, but I'll tell you what, the lineups where he is a contender to be in the starting lineup for me, if I've got a decent option, I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Last thing, Dan, we've got we got about 5 minutes. At TKUE88 is asking, should he trade Devonte Smith for Rhamandre Stevenson in PPR? Now, I don't have any other information on that, so I don't know if this is like redraft or dynasty. I feel like it might not even matter, like just based on the two players, whether it's redraft or dynasty. I feel like it'd be the same.
Trading away Devonte Smith, there are very few players I would trade Devonte Smith for at this point, and Rhamandre is definitely not one of them. The Patriots offense looks like a mess. The Patriots offensive line doesn't look good. this is not 2022. This is 2023, and Rhamandre just doesn't. I don't think he's got the same ceiling that he did last year. So yeah, I would just hang tight on Devonte Smith.
And Smith, I mean, seems to sometimes be the preferred target for Hurts. Again, they kind of have their games. We saw the last game. So what is it? AJ Brown, yeah, they're both at 29% with target shares right now after 2 weeks, according to Mike Clay. So again, it's you're talking about 1A, 1B there in Philly, and you want to trade 1B maybe of one of the top offenses. You got to make sure you get something good back. I don't know that Rhamandre is the place to go. Just because, like Dan said, the Patriots offense, right? Maybe you can find. Trying to think who else you could target as a running back right now, Dan.
Yeah,
it's tough, right? It's a tough position to go after.
It feels like anyone with a pulse, you might want to trade for. But I would look to try to trade a different player than Devonte Smith. I think Devonte Smith is probably going to be a top 12 wide receiver when all is said and done. And those are worth hanging on to. Even if you have big problems at running back, the trade might not be the way to solve it. Going to the waiver wire might be the best way to solve it, even if it hurts you a little bit for a game or two until you find the right combination, or until one of your star players gets back. I just don't like trading a guy like Devonte Smith though to solve what might be a short-term problem.
Just don't take that big of a swing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at running back, you don't necessarily need to. We're seeing all the big guys drop. And this is the thing when you're drafting these teams. This is why Dan and I draft, deep at running back, because they're going to fall, right, eventually somewhere. So to me, maybe look for a lesser receiver, maybe a hot name, someone who's built up some value in the first 2 weeks of the season that you can move for maybe a more solid kind of deeper type of running back. And we named some today. Maybe you can go get Roschon Johnson for cheap, or who was the other guy we talked about, Dan, in that same segment? That was
that we were also looking at Jerome Ford.
That's what it was.
Probably come a little bit more expensive, but
yes,
yeah, you can.
But that type of player,
right? Or just what, go out, get Matt Breida for this week and play him on Thursday night, because he's probably, Saquon's probably not going to play. You can probably plug Breida in and get a decent performance. And then next week, maybe Saquon's back, maybe he's not. If he's not, then you got Breida for another week. If he is back, then you move on to somebody else. There will be another kind of obvious target out there. So, just keep playing that waiver wire, and, don't panic on the running backs. Usually, if you've got your quarterback, your wide receivers all set, and a halfway decent tight end, you can kind of mix and match at running back for a little while.
I'm seeing Kendre Miller, Dan. I'm getting excited. I'm seeing his name in the chat. I got my bags full of Kendre Miller. I didn't think he was, but now I'm seeing full go this week. Yeah, this is 2 hours ago. Full go in practice this week. So to me, that's like, if you can go get Kendre Miller right now, that's a guy I would trust to lead that backfield. I like what Jones showed and everything, but they drafted Kendre for a reason. To me, he was always a 3-down back, and that's why they brought him in. I know Kamara's coming back, but if you can get Kendre and he's starting this week, let's roll, Dan.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, what are we at here? 59? All right, guy, the chat has been awesome. You guys have been just all night active, the questions, the all of it. We love having you guys with us live. Make sure you join us every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler Network. And then you can find us Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, an hour. We do 45 to an hour right before the Thursday night show. We get you ready for that night and for the following week. So this week will be week 3. Dan, any closing words, any wise words, or anything you want to say before we close this out? Are you ready to go?
Yeah, just again, I think this is going to be kind of a tricky week on the waiver wire. There's going to be a lot of intriguing possibilities out there, but a lot of them are going to be a little bit more short-term than long-term. So use your waiver wire dollars wisely. Figure out what your team needs really are. Don't go overspending, but if you do need a guy, spend what you need to get that guy.
Yeah, and I'll say this: pay attention to who teams are playing. Like we're ready to throw guys out to the to the dumpsters just because they've had a couple tough weeks or again, week 1 is usually tough, and then say week 2 you play a tough defense. Let these guys give them time. Let's not completely give up on guys. Make sure that when you're giving up on someone, it's not going to come back and bite you back. And we've talked about some guys that have done that. So good luck on the waiver wire, guys. Tomorrow night, we're going to actually some really good news on the GOAT District channel. We're going to have Theo back doing the live waiver wire show on a weekly basis on Tuesdays on the GOAT District channel. So another reason for you guys to tune in there and to subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you guys. You guys have been awesome, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offers the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.